Hi everyone, I'm back. I know it's been a while. I just wanted to give you a quick update, firstly, and then also I wanted to give a few tips on debunking, mainly how to tell if you have a fear cage effect going on, and other types of things when it comes to paranormal investigation. Firstly, my updates. I'm currently working on going over some footage and evidence from the last investigation we went on where we had some pretty impressive spikes, and I'm hoping I get to include a little bit of that in a video in the future. I'm also working on a new book. If those of you who have just joined me don't know, I am an author. However, most of what I've written has to do with fiction, mainly fantasy fiction. I have 2 novels up on the Kindle, plus a few little pamphlets having to do with the paranormal. And I've decided to basically make a handbook for sensitives, or the path of a sensitive warrior. If you have followed me and my blog for long enough, you will know what I mean when I say the path of a sensitive warrior. It's basically having to do with whether you want to take on the mantle of being a sensitive and really getting into the aspects of helping the spirits or helping other sensitives or helping the community, basically. It's a path I chose to take as a paranormal investigator, educator, and blogger. And I decided, we need more people to do that kind of thing. We need more education for our youth who are sensitive, children to teens and adults and beyond. We don't have enough resources out there, at least not in my opinion. Oh, there's plenty of stuff out there. But how do we weed certain things out of paranormal websites that have just a hodgepodge? There's a reason that I started The Average Sensitive, and that's one of them, one of the main reasons. The book I'm working on, it's a plethora, and that's one of the whole ideas, because there's so many facets of being a sensitive that, a lot of people outside of the paranormal community, or maybe parents who are dealing with sensitive kids, just don't know where to start on. And I'm just going to give you a basic outline of what I've decided to do here. Obviously, we're going to talk about sensitivity, empathy, psychic gifts, medium gifts, clairvoyance, clairsentience, all the clairs. We're going to talk about keeping a record, like journaling, making sure you have a confidant or a support group, people who listen to you and won't judge you. We're going to talk about, in this book, addressing whether or not to pursue the actual path, to actually follow, or at least accept that you can control it and follow a path where you're not going to be afraid of it, and that you can use your gifts from time to time. Learning to block, learning to control, dealing with teen sensitivity, which basically would be a long double section chapter for both youth and parents, and how to talk to each other about it. Learning to say no, being normal, that kind of thing, if you decide not to use your gifts. All kinds of web resources, reading resources, movies and documentaries that have to do with things like, I'll give you an example of movies. There are films out there that are very good at showing the intuitiveness or sensitivity of an individual. Take The Others with Nicole Kidman, or The Awakening, which was a 2011 film, and those two are very, very good examples. How gifts can mix together and how to tell them apart. I'm going to call this chapter the blender, because it really is true that a lot of the times it all mixes together and we have a hard time distinguishing, say, a clairvoyance from a basic sensitivity to a psychic gift, because there are people out there who have pretty much everything. What table tilting taught us, I basically want to give an overview of spiritualism and how spiritualism taught us to be open-minded and open-spirited, and open discussions on both paranormal and sensitivity. And granted, in the age of spiritualism, there were so many fakers, but I believe there were a lot of real mediums out there, and they really gave a good introduction to the world on what it means to be a sensitive, a medium, a psychic, empathic, clairvoyant, what have you, in a world where science is pretty much the dominating factor. Spirit guides, angels and demons, auras, which is something I'm going to have to research because I don't have a lot of experience with auras. Young children and ghosts, basically tying into all the youth, because there is a major difference between what the children will see because they're so uninhibited and they don't have the restraints on their minds that they will probably have when they become teenagers. What you don't know can hurt you, and that's about ignoring it or using an unexperienced blocking technique. Like if you don't know what you're doing, really it can damage how your sensitivity works, first of all. But if you are not familiar with how to block the spirits from entering your conscious, then you're probably going to have some major problems. Because you can try to ignore it and they will still see. They'll pretty much, that beacon that I've talked about in previous videos will be much brighter. Because you don't know how to block it, you don't know how to darken that light. And then know your onion, which basically is psychiatric vs psychic. How can you tell whether what you are seeing is all part of your mind or a disorder that you have or the real thing? It's a lot of things that people don't really think about. The other things that I wanted to cover have to do with what I'm going to talk about today, and including things like, joining a paranormal team, bringing in a paranormal team. But what I want to talk to you about has to do with keeping a level head and debunking techniques and how to tell if there's a fear cage effect going on in your home that might be giving you that sense that you're being watched and such. Okay, now on to the topic that I actually started this video on. I guess I digressed a little. When you are investigating paranormal phenomena, whether it be as an individual with a home that you think might be haunted, or as a team investigating somebody else's supposedly haunted home, there are a few things you need to keep in mind. Well, firstly, keep a level head. There might be some things that will freak you out when you are in somebody else's home, especially when you're in somebody else's home and you don't know the place very well. Spend the first hour or so getting to know the sounds of the house, the settling, the furnace sounds. The last house we investigated actually had a refrigerator that clicked when the fan was going on. It made a weird knocking noise. It sounded like, like a knocking. You need to keep a level head and just write it down. Write down that you have certain noise coming from certain place and that it is not paranormal, so that when you're going over all your evidence, you can distinguish what's man-made from what's probably not man-made, and what could just be an effect that, maybe it's something in your equipment. Now for debunking techniques. When you're looking at different claims that the homeowner has made, take a look at things like, say they took a picture and they see faces in it, and they show you the picture and yeah, it looks like you see faces, but it could still be matrixing. Have them show you that window. If it is smudgy and it's not very clean or it reflects a lot, that could give you a major reason to think that it's just, the dirt and the reflection making a matrixing effect, that you automatically think, oh, it's a face. That's just one. There are 1,000 things you can do. Maybe not 1,000. Probably not 1,000. But there are a lot of things that you can do to figure out what certain things are. Take a look at the stairs. Do they creak? Does the floor creak? Does opening a door make a certain kind of sound? You need to get familiar with pretty much every aspect and every part of the house. Know your onion. Know it. And you're probably not going to have too much of a problem. Um, what you probably do need to do, and I'll give you an example in a minute, is check for a fear cage effect. Now this is the big thing. Fear cage effect is basically, it could be a small area, it could be a big area, but it's a presence of too much EMF in the area. Basically, for those who are unaware, EMF stands for electromagnetic fields. It's basically what too much electricity gives off. And human brains are pretty amazing things, and they can be affected by some pretty odd things. Let's be honest. EMF can give a person who is sensitive to EMF fields the feeling, sensations that they're being watched, skin crawling feeling, they can hallucinate, they can see things, hear things that are not there. It's generally a mess because that can really give you the feeling like your house is haunted, or at least that part of the house is haunted. So if you have just that one spot that you can prove is just full of EMF, you've got a fear cage effect, and your house is fine. So, how do you find too much EMF? Well, almost every single team that I've met has some sort of EMF reader, whether it be a K2 meter, a mil meter, or something like I have, the ghost meter. This is a ghost meter. Technically, it's this exact same thing as a K2 meter and a mil meter. It reads milligauss, which is the reading for electromagnetic fields or electricity. See that? That's what it does when it's sensing a lot of EMF. And it'll do it around my computer too. Woo! Basically, if you have a space that has an electrical box or more than one thing that could be giving off EMF, you have a fear cage effect. I'll give you a small example. The last investigation that we ran, we were just 3 people. And it was a relatively small house, and we were in the basement, and we saw this teeny tiny little bathroom area. And we went inside, and suddenly everything was spiking. I mean, my ghost meter was going off, our K2s were going off, the mil meter was squealing because we had the REM pod on. And we looked around, and we have some exposed wiring above us. There is a electrical box on one side, and then there's a furnace and a water heater on the other side. When the furnace kicks on, EMF goes nuts. And also, when you get too close to the light bulb fixture, because there's also a little electrical socket up there, it goes crazy too, and you get very high readings. Basically, all of that together gives you a creepy feeling. And we were able to tell the homeowner that at least in that space, that's where you had the majority of the creepy feeling anyway, at least in the bathroom. The whole basement, they had things happen to them. And as far as I know, we haven't gotten anything just yet. But we did check everywhere for different readings, and we really didn't get much outside of that bathroom where the electrical box and the furnace and the water heater and the exposed wiring and the light bulb with the electrical outlet in was. So say you don't have one of these tools. Granted, they're rather on the cheap side of most ghost hunting equipment. There's a lot of expensive equipment out there. But these are more along the lines of $30 to $50, $60 a piece. And by these, I mean these and the K2 meters. Mel meters are more along the sides of 80 to 100, maybe above, because they have a more fine-tuned instrumentation to them. And I think really it depends on where you buy them as well. So if you can't buy them, well, you know what, maybe it's time to bring in a paranormal team. They will have these meters, and they will have ways to check. So, in conclusion, if you're way freaked out in one particular area, it might just be your EMF readings. The exciting part of paranormal investigation is that you never know when these will go off. We put this ghost meter our two K2 meters and our Mel meter, plus our audio and spirit box, uh, in a EMF or electrical neutral area. And basically that just means there is no other way it could go off except when touched or something like that. Um, we got some pretty outrageous spikes, and we were pretty excited about that. We did get a few on tape. In fact, that was the maiden voyage for my ghost meter. I'd gotten it for Christmas, and I have not had a chance to actually use it in investigation until now. So it was really cool to see how the K2 meter would jump to red, and this would go beep. And I'd never heard it do that before, but I think the most interesting thing we had happen with these meters is that K2 jumped to red and stayed to red while this thing beeped for about 10 seconds. It went beep, 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 and then just abruptly stopped. And I've never heard it go off on its own like that, and that was definitely a cool experience. And for somebody who tries to think on the both the scientific, the debunking, and the paranormal side of things, that's pretty cool because it seems like we had some kind of conversation. And I'm excited to go over the audio so that I can see if anything actually responded to us. I'm also currently in the middle of writing new blog posts, so keep an eye on the blog. The description and the link is down below. And I will also keep you guys updated on how progress on my book is going. And heck, I might even get some vlogging topics out of this writing.